Hello, Internet! It's Becky, and I'm back with Inglorious Reviews talking about Arrow. Now, if you're one of the tens of my regular followers, you're probably wondering, where the heck have I been for the last few months, or weeks? Well, working. I have been very busy with work. I hold down several jobs because I'm poor and I'm trying not to be quite as poor as I could be. And I've been busy getting ready for school next year. I'm going to a new school and moving into a new city in a few months, and I've been busy with that. So cherish this background while it's still here. You might not see it again after this episode, who knows? So I think I've missed like 6 episodes. Oh my gosh, yeah, I've been negligent. So instead of just going episode by episode, because that would take forever, let me just talk about the general plot points before getting into tonight's finale. One of the biggest changes, one of the biggest plot points of the last month or two was Roy leaving, and oh my gosh, I called it. When, like, the second, like, they killed Roy, I was like, oh, I called it. I knew that he was going to be the guy that that they got rid of, because, okay, so the Arrow team, the writers said that he had like a 2-year contract and it expired, and he decided to go off somewhere else. When after that episode went on, and everyone, and they announced that Colton Haynes was leaving. I saw people joking about it on Tumblr. Someone was like, "Don't put Colton Haynes on your show. Dis ho ain't loyal." One person wrote, which I thought was funny, because he did the same thing with Teen Wolf. When he was on Teen Wolf, he left. He was there for 2 seasons, and then he left to go do Arrow. Now he's leaving this to go do something else. Though, I kind of can't blame Colton Haynes for leaving. I really can't. They haven't given him anything to do this last season. He just spent most of his time just standing around the room and like getting beaten in fights. They didn't really seem to have much going forward with him. Like, his whole thing about becoming, the Arrow sidekick, that happened in, season 2, and they were done with it, and they just didn't know what to do with him afterwards. And his romance with Thea, which was a big part of his character's plot, fizzled, and they tried to bring it back, but it just wasn't the same because, the chemistry was gone because it's just been so long, and it seemed like they were just bringing the two characters together just because he wanted to give Colton Haynes something to do. Like, that's what it read to me. Like, when he and her got back together during, and they were at the wedding together, I was like, oh, he's in the scene, yay. And they're giving him something to do. So I can't blame Colton Haynes. And also, I think someone mentioned he was in that movie San Andreas, which apparently not enough to be in any of the commercials for it, but enough. I guess some people think maybe he got the movie bug and wants to go on and do bigger Hollywood projects, which, meh. I mean, I don't want to really bash any of the actors, but Colton Haynes does not seem like an incredibly diverse or I don't know what the word is. Like, he just kind of plays one character in everything he does. He's not an incredible. He doesn't have a big acting range. That's it. He's very good looking. He has a nice body. So that will get him places in Hollywood, of course. But we'll see what he winds up doing. I wonder if actually he's being shuffled off. There's supposedly this Legends of Tomorrow spinoff. I've been hearing whispers about it, but not really much news. But every now and again people reference that there's going to be a 3rd Arrow spinoff, or a 3rd like Arrowverse show after The Flash, because The Flash was such a runaway hit. And Ray Palmer might be in it or something. And other people, I don't really know. There was a Suicide Squad show planned at one point, but then they decided to do a Suicide Squad movie, so I think that project got canned and they're doing this instead. But I don't know very much about it, but maybe he's going off to do that. Who knows? Maybe for once he could be like he could do something where like he's not the 4th lead and he has more of a featured part. Of course, when he came onto Arrow, that was a big deal, and he was a big character. But then, like, after a season, more compelling characters started getting written onto the show, and he was bumped down to, like, 5th lead or something. Not, like, with pay scale and billing, but just, like, in the plots and the stories and of everything, and he just got kind of shuffled off to the background. Yeah, so I'm not surprised that Colton Haynes decided to leave. I can't blame him. You know, he'll do better, and the show won't have to, like, have the requisite Roy plotline before going back to the regular, you know, everything else going on. So, yeah. I mean, the show Arrow is really good, and, I mean, it has its issues, but they do a good job of developing really good characters, and after a while, there were just so many great, compelling characters on the show that, like, you kind of had to rotate them in and out, and the show got kind of bogged down by trying to rotate all these good characters in and out of the main plot line. So yeah, oh my gosh, but I called it. Like, the second I heard that there was going to be a big death and someone was going to leave, I was like, oh, they're getting rid of Roy. So I was right. Oh my gosh, but Thea getting stabbed, oh my gosh, that was a real, like, shocker. That was a real shocking twist. I did not see that coming at all. Like, you know, I've had issues with, like, the different plot lines and decisions they made about the show, but that was one of the first times I was just, like, literally, like, just jaw-dropping, dropping shocked. You know, a lot of the twists this season have been kind of silly, but oh my gosh, Roz going after Thea, oh my gosh, that was a really good ender for that episode. Okay, what else? So Ross decides, and, you know, I've been, you know, kind of like with Amanda Waller, you know, I would say all her weird scheming, after a while, it just didn't make any sense. And after a while, like, when you looking at all, like, her plans, the different things she does, I was like, you know, who, and, like, kept trying to force Oliver to be this agent and doing all these things to force him to do what she wanted. And at the end of it, I was like, who, you know, quoting, you know, a comment I read, like, who is letting her break a dozen eggs just to make one subpar omelet? And that's kind of the way I feel about Roz. Like, okay, so he wanted the Arrow to go be a successor, and then he wanted to wait a while and then try to brainwash him, and then he wanted Oliver to kill Nisa. Oh, but now he doesn't want Oliver to kill Nisa. Now he wants Nisa, who he'd been training all his life to take his place, to marry Oliver and have children, and to have his children. It's basically, they stole Batman and Talia's thing, because in the Batman series, Roz wants Batman to marry Talia and for Batman to take his place. That's what Roz's relationship with Batman was. That's what he was doing in Batmanverse. And so they basically lifted that plot and gave it to Nisa and Oliver, and it was really weird. Like, okay, he's like, oh, you will continue my line by giving Oliver bearing Oliver's children, and those children will become the next Roz, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, but, like, think about this logistically. Like, Nisa maybe would marry Oliver right now because her life is in danger, but, like, you know, when they're together and being intimate, like, she has a very good way, you know, she has access to him, so she could very easily kill him, and make it so, like, you know, make it so that she can't have children at all. So very weird reasoning, very, like, just out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere, plans. Oh, what else? So yeah, Roz really wound up being kind of a weak villain. He ran around doing all kinds of things, had, like, 5 different motives, and, like, 5 different plots, you know, plots to do this, that, or the other for, you know, to get Oliver on his side. And the thing is, you know, just not to slide into the finale too much, but, okay, so in the night's finale, Oliver revealed himself that he had not been brainwashed, that he had resisted it. And so he was not Al Sahim, and he was not, the League's puppet or whatever. And he was not, Roz's puppet. But Roz still wanted, and they really did not delve into why Roz was so committed to fulfilling this prophecy. Like, even at the end, he tells Roz tells Oliver to meet him so they can fight, because he still believes that Oliver is the fulfillment of this prophecy. And, like, it just didn't make sense why he would be so committed, because he knows that Oliver is still himself, that he, doesn't care about, all the League's tradition and blah, blah, blah. He's not Al Sahim. So say Oliver did kill Roz, then Oliver will have the power to go back, take over the League, and he could pretty much turn the League of Assassins into the League of the Girl Scouts. But killing Roz would give him the authority, and, like, instead of running around, like, committing genocide in random cities, he could be running around, be like, okay, you guys are going to work in soup kitchens, and you guys are going to go work in refugee camps, and you guys are going to go after human traffickers and drug traders, and, do that and use the League of Assassins to, do good instead of being a bunch of assassins. He would have that power, and no one could fight him on it because they all worked so hard to get him in the dang position in the first place. So I just do not understand why Roz would be so committed to seeing it to the end, to make Oliver Ra's al Ghul, even though the brainwashing failed and Oliver will not be any sort of normal Ra's al Ghul at all. So I really don't understand his motives there. What are the big things? Okay, Ray and Felicity broke up, and I don't know if I mentioned this about last video or not. I really hate that trope where, like, some people, you see this a lot on TV, where people are going out for a few weeks, and one person says that they love them, and the other person can't say it back. And just because that person isn't emotionally at that point and can't say I love you back, that means that they should break up, that they aren't meant to be together, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, it takes time to, for those feelings to develop, especially in a new relationship, because Felicity and Ray, they'd only been going out for a few weeks. And it's just completely ridiculous for Ray to expect Felicity to, or even Felicity for herself necessarily, to expect herself to be able to say I love you back at that point. But they needed a reason to get Ray and Felicity to break up, to push her and Oliver getting back together in the last few episodes of the season. And it really drove me nuts. Like, and especially, like, they spent so much time this season building up Ray and Felicity getting together, and then, like, they got broken up, right? They broke up really abruptly. Like, it was a really abrupt, quick breakup, which again, poor plotting and logic that happened in this show. That's been happening this season. Speaking of poor logic, okay, so, oh my gosh. Malcolm, I've been complaining all year that because, John Barrowman is such a treasure, they all want to keep Malcolm around even when it doesn't make sense. That all these, they all go on about how, even tonight, at the end, they were all talking about, how heroic the main group is, but they're all still willing to let Malcolm hang around. Like, no one even questions, okay, should we turn him over to the police now? Like, or at least make sure everyone knows that Malcolm's still alive, so his skulking around and causing trouble is harder. And oh my gosh, the moronic, completely illogical, stupid decision by Oliver to give Malcolm the Ra's al Ghul ring. Oh my gosh, and Malcolm himself is still calling him Roz. Like, this guy was in the League for like 10 years or something, like, and has been, worked closely with Ra's al Ghul, and he's still pronouncing it as Roz and not Raish, even though all the League characters Miseo, Raish himself, Nisa, keep calling him Raish. No, that drove me nuts too. And so Malcolm helps out Oliver, and in return, he, since Oliver doesn't want to be Raish, he hands it over to Malcolm, which is the stupidest thing. Like, they made a bargain. And I understand, oh, well, blah, 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 you made a bargain. But, like, this guy's a madman. He's a genocidal madman who got 500 people killed at the end of the first season. Like, even though, oh, he claims he loves the... No, he was, like, helpful during, like, during, this whole thing with Raish. That doesn't mean you trust him with that kind of power. No. Like, take that and give it to Nisa. Because, why would Oliver not give that to Nisa instead? Why would he hand that over to Malcolm? He's not trustworthy. You shouldn't be giving him power. You should be putting him on Lee and Yu or giving a house arrest or, oh my gosh, what the heck? Like, that last scene, I was just like, what? When Raish, like, when he was like, oh, kneel before Ra's al Ghul, and Nisa, of all people, Nisa, instead of just putting a sword through him, kneels. What the heck? This man murdered your girlfriend, the love of your life, and you kneel before him? Oh my gosh. And she's like, I'll never forgive you for what you did to Sarah. I'll kill you myself. And he's like, well, fine, but for right now, kneel. She should have gotten on her knees and then from that position just put a sword, speared him with a sword. Oh, that was the stupidest. Like, they want to keep John Barrowman around, and they wanted, like, a big plot twist for this end of the season because they were kind of, wrapping up Oliver's story or whatever, so they did that, and it was so stupid. Oh my gosh, that was the dumbest thing of this entire season. I think Oliver, of all people, deciding to give Malcolm the power of Ra's al Ghul and have a League of Assassins at his fingertips. Like, and Malcolm's like, oh, does that mean we're enemies again? And Oliver's like, well, that depends on what you do with your end of the bargain. It's like, that's not good enough. Don't, like, give him power and be like, oh, well, you use this for good. Not when he has, like, a body count. Not when Malcolm has the body count that he does. Oh my gosh, you don't, like, give a genocidal, murderous, a traitorous madman the power of the League of Assassins and be like, now you be good. You don't take advantage of this. Like, you don't act exactly the way we all know you do, for the last 3 years. And, oh my gosh, what the heck? Oh, that was a new, like, I've been complaining about a lot of the illogical decisions people make, especially about Malcolm, but this was a serious low to give him the power of Ra's al Ghul and have Nisa actually kneel before him instead of just getting rid of him like she should. Ugh. Oh my gosh. Like, and how is she so calm? How is she so not just pissed off at Oliver and be like, and end the season like, I'm gonna get Oliver Queen killed my dad and gave this guy, my lover's killer, the power. I'm gonna go after him. Like, that would have been a season ender. That's probably what's gonna happen next year, but oh my gosh. Why? Ugh. Okay. Ugh. Oh. Moving on. Thea showed up. Okay. Was I in the bathroom or something when Colton Haynes was on? Because I thought he was supposed to be in the last season or in the last episode or something, but I didn't see him at all. Maybe his part got cut. I don't know. Yeah, Thea shows up she showed up in the middle of the street, decked all out in red leather, out of nowhere. That was so weird. How did no one, like, notice her? And she saves John, arrows down a few, one of the League members infected with the virus. And, and she joins the end fight. And she helps, and it was really cool. And she decided that she wants to join the team, and she said she wants to call herself Red Arrow, but Oliver's like, I told everyone to call you Speedy, which is supposed to be her childhood nickname. And, And so she decides to stick around. She stays, and Malcolm tells her he's leaving, and she's like, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out." But she does thank him for he helped her become strong, and she probably wouldn't have known how to survive, mentally and physically, all the things that happened this year if it weren't for him. Despite everything he has done, he did help her become a stronger person, which is the weird catch-22 about that plot decision. But yeah, but so she thanks him for that, acknowledges him, and again is like, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out." So she's gonna stick around and join the Arrow team. So which is pretty cool. Everyone was saying she was probably gonna wind up joining the team at some point, and I think it's cool that she's joining in the action. Oh my gosh, she's come a long way since from the spoiled, drug-addled brat she was in season 1. And Willa Holland is a really good actress, and she really sunk her teeth into the plot she had this season. So yeah, gold stars for Thea and Willa Holland. She's done a really good job this year. And Felicity, in the last episode, she inspires Oliver, who's, always had this thing where, like, oh, this is only going to end with me dying. His mindset has always been that, he's just going to die at the end of his crusade. Like, his crusade's going to end with his death. And she points out that he's not, the same guy that he was in season 1 and even season 2, that he's changed. And she tells him, "Don't fight to die, fight to live." And he goes off, rescues Roz, and she gets in Ray Palmer's suit and rescues him from falling off a water fountain, or a waterfall, or whatever that was. And I think it was like a dam waterfall, I don't know. And so that was pretty cool, seeing her in Ray's suit. Oh my, but okay. One thing that really got me about this, he withheld so much of his plan. She was in real distress. She thought he was gonna just go away and watch her die, and even if he wasn't, the emotional distress of going through all that put her through because of his constant withholding and secrets, that's not something you just walk away from, and he, she's been through a lot this year, him constantly rejecting her and constantly turning away and withholding secrets and everything, he put her through, when he was being Elsa him. I just don't think that's something you could easily ignore, and I kind of felt like she shouldn't have forgiven him, that she forgave him too easily, that he needed to earn it more, that he hadn't earned it, I don't know. They wanted it to end, obviously, with Oliver walking away from the Arrow and those two riding off into the sunset. But I still feel like it, and I'm an All-City shipper. I like their relationship, I really do. But, it just doesn't, that scene at the end didn't feel quite earned. I don't know how maybe you could have earned it, but just, I don't know, a different way. Or, I don't know. I kind of have expected for this season to end with her telling him that he just, after last episode, and, finding out that he'd been lying to everyone and, doing all that stuff on his own free will, as far as last episode was concerned, Felicity considered Oliver, that who he was to have died. She thought that he, who his personality had just died, and a few months ago, she thought that he'd actually died, and those turmoil that put her through, I just don't feel like that's something you should just walk away from. That's not something that you should just get over. So, I guess for shipping's sake, I liked that they got together at the end of the episode, but it just didn't feel quite earned. I didn't quite like it. But at least Oliver gets to ride off in the sunset for once, and who knows where it'll go from here. I guess he'll get called back into the city at some point. My idea was that they'd end the season with Oliver deciding to reemerge as the Arrow and convince everyone that he was just a copycat Arrow of the guy who died, and they'd start calling him the Green Arrow to differentiate between the two. Maybe that's what they'll do next season. Then I was not expecting quite the riding off into the sunset, which, as I said, did not feel very earned. So, what else? So Felicity gets over it all, I guess, and rides off with Oliver into the sunset in a car. Whose car was that? I thought Oliver was still poor. And Felicity runs off. Thea stays. Laurel and her dad, I don't know that they're completely okay, but Laurel finally tells her dad to stop being such a jerk. He's drinking again. Was how bad he's fallen. And she tells him rightly, blame Sarah on me, blame it on Oliver, but don't blame us for you falling off the wagon, because that's on you. And tells him to, knock off being such a jerk and help them save the city, and he does. And he doesn't, and, so I guess they're on better terms, or at least working their way to it. And Laurel, I think the last scene we see her, and she's with Team Arrow, basking in the glory of the victory, and she's gonna stick around and be the canary. And I guess maybe help the Just to Life as a mask. And Diggle walks off because he's still pissed off at Oliver for, rightly so, for kidnapping Lila. And he walks off and he's like, I don't think I can get past this, but, I hope everything works out for you, blah, blah, blah. They shake hands and Diggle walks off and Oliver's like, well, they'll need you here. You've been a big part for the city, part of it, keeping the city safe, and they need you. And he's like, oh, I'll think about it. And, I don't know. I think I've also heard rumors that Diggle is going to be being shuffled off into the Legends of Tomorrow show. I've also heard rumors that he's going to be the new Green Lantern. So, who knows what's in store for John Diggle. But he's still, oh my gosh, I did not appreciate John Diggle the first few seasons as much as I should have, but he really is so much the backbone of this show and the backbone of Oliver's support, and the reason that Oliver even acts like half as decently and rationally as he does, really. So I couldn't imagine the show without him. So he walks off, probably to go join Lila or whatever. What else? John Diggle walks off, and Thea and Malcolm is the new crush. Roy Palmer. We last see him, he's trying to miniaturize the suit, and it explodes, and we see the exterior of the show at the top of the building. Don't mess with that stuff in the high-rise of a building. Take it to a isolated lab and stuff. Don't do that there. So he takes it off, and it explodes, and we see the outline of the building exploding, and the P of the Palmer. Oh, someone died from being caught under that giant electronic P that was on the Palmer building. I'm telling you, someone died. And that was so tonally weird. Just like Ray Palmer is just really weird, tonally. Because, the explosion like that, you would think, just seeing it, you'd think, oh, that's really serious, and you wonder if it's if Ray gets hurt, and that has consequences for next season, but also I couldn't tell if that was played for laughs, and we were supposed to think it's funny that Ray Palmer messes up, the suit explodes or what, calls it an explosion, and he's fine. So I couldn't tell if that was supposed to be a serious plot ender for, to be continued next season, or if that was just a joke, because totally it was really weird, and Ray's a really weird character. He's grown on me, but I still can't quite like him. Yeah, so, and of course I've also heard rumors that Ray's going off to the Legends of Tomorrow show. So, yeah, I guess we'll have to wait around and see what the roster of that show is supposed to be. Yeah. I mean, I guess with Roy gone, maybe he'll come out and be Oliver's field buddy. Or maybe he'll go off to Legends of Tomorrow. Something like that sounds like, a Legends of Tomorrow-esque whatever that means, hero. So we shall see. Oh gosh. So, yeah, what were the big plot twists? Yeah, I think those were the big plots of this year. Raish was a weird villain. I'll say this about overall. Season 3 was a bit of a letdown, if I'm being honest. You know, there were plots were all over the place. A plot would start, and then it would come back 3 episodes later, and you know, they had a million different little plots that never really went anywhere, you know, would suddenly come back, and you know, the first half of the season especially was very incoherent. You know, very all over the place. It got a little better at the end of the season when it got more focused when Roz came in. The show really does need a villain or like a main mystery to stabilize it, because there were like a million different things going on all season that, you know, were really honestly disappointing a lot of the time. The show, you know, it leaves characters places and then we don't see them again. Like, you know, Thea came back and then she was gone, you know, and then she was just in the background for a long time, and Roy would just be in the background for a long time. So, I don't know, maybe this season it suffered from a bloated cast as well as bloated plots, and now that people are being shoveled off to the spin-off or they're leaving the show, maybe next year's roster will be a little bit smaller, and that'll help it. And hopefully next year will be better now that they've learned a little bit about what works and what doesn't. Because season 2 was very, very good. It really, really impressed me. I enjoyed it a lot. And I felt like it was finally, you know, they learned from their mistakes of season 1, and then this season was back to that. Yeah. So, yeah, and the flashbacks, so we finished the flashbacks, and everything came full circle. And I guess it ended with Oliver deciding to go back to the island, and that's why he was on that island? Oh. But he also apparently spent some time in Russia, so maybe it isn't the last we've seen of the flashbacks. So what else? Yeah, the flashbacks this season, they just, for most of the year, honestly, it just seemed like there was no point to them, and then they finally came through to the end, but it was honestly a little too late. Like the flashbacks in season 2, you know, I found them kind of boring. And then at like Christmas time, when Slade returned, it made sense. But then now it was like only these last few weeks of the season that the flashbacks actually started making sense to why they were there. Yeah, so you know, it didn't really work. Yeah, a lot of the season didn't really work. Yeah, they didn't really know what to do with a lot of the characters. The other characters, they should be getting rid of it, but they kept finding reasons to bring them around, like Malcolm. I think just because they like the character and they like the actor, even when it did not serve the plot at all. Yeah, so, and of course there were good things. You know, all the actors really on the show have really are good, and even ones who were maybe iffy in the first season, they've all grown into their characters, and they're all compelling characters in a way, but a lot of the plot just doesn't make a lot of sense. A lot of the plots they're acting just don't make a lot of sense. So yeah, my enthusiasm, part of the reason, you know, along with being busy at work, is that I haven't been posting videos, is that my enthusiasm has waned a little bit. So I haven't, you know, just been all that interested and, you know, wanted necessarily to stop and share my opinions with all of you, because, you know, I just didn't care quite as much. And, you know, Arrow kind of went over the course of maybe 2 months or so from being this thing like, oh, I gotta sit down on Wednesday night, gotta be there to see the new episode live, to being like this optional thing that, you know, I could just watch the next day online or something. I didn't care. Which is a shame, and it's always a shame when a show that you find fun goes downhill and you lose interest. It's always kind of sad. It's not fun when that happens. Yeah. Well, alright. I think that's about it. I've enjoyed sharing my comments with all of you this last year, even though Mickey isn't around anymore for us to do these together. Yeah. So thank you for listening. If there's anything else you want me to talk about, other shows you're interested, in my opinion, for whatever reason you would be, let me know. If you disagree with me, if you think I'm right about the things I say, if you have questions, comments, concerns, put it in the feel free to comment, like, subscribe, whatever, and let me know. So you all have a nice summer. I'll see you next year. I think. We'll see.